In this episode, we interview co-founder of Escape Fitness and host of Escape Your Limits podcast, Matthew Januszek. We decided to share this interview that Matthew recorded for the Disruptive Entrepreneur podcast as he tells his story about how Escape was built from a spare bedroom in his parents' house with no money, no experience, and no connections into a global fitness business now operating in over 80 countries worldwide. Join us as Matthew gives us some of his ideas about life, business, and fitness.
Welcome to the Disruptive Entrepreneur Podcast. For anyone who wants to make money and make a difference, grow and leverage your enterprise better, get more done in less time, outsource everything and create your ideal lifestyle. And now, your host, 8 times best-selling author and double world record holder, Rob Moore.
Welcome to the Disruptive Entrepreneur Podcast. This is Rob Moore here, and I'm very excited about this interview. I never thought Peterborough had that many successful people in it. In fact, most people don't even know how close it is to London. But I've been really lucky that in the last few weeks, I've interviewed some amazing entrepreneurs, business people who are based or set up in Peterborough. I interviewed the winner of The Apprentice. He's from Peterborough. Neville Wright, who's worth well over 100 million, big time into property. And I'm very excited to have Matt with me, Matt Januszek. So Matt, this is everyone. And everyone, this is Matt. So I'm going to really get into kind of Matt's story. I don't really like doing long official intros, and the thing is it would take about 20 minutes with all of Matt's accolades. But he's been in fitness 30 years. In a way, he's been his own sort of fitness guinea pig because he's got a passion for fitness, as you can see. I'm feeling rather weak sitting next to Matt. He runs and set up and runs a business called Escape, which 98 was it you set it up?
Yeah, 98. Yeah.
So not that long ago, and now is $40 million a year global business.
Yeah.
Got that bit right?
Yeah.
Which is amazing. So 98, 16, 17 years.
Yeah, pretty much.
Gone from pretty much bedroom to
out the back of the bedroom.
Yeah.
Mum answering the phone.
Right. Yeah. To
Dad helping out part time.
Yeah. To a global business, which is like really inspiring. Before we turn this on, we were talking a lot about diet, brain food, travel, how you sort of deal with travel. I'm going to get into all of that. So I think this episode is going to be really unique to any that you've listened to before, and there's going to be a lot of health and fitness and diet into it. Also, Matt's developed a lot of fitness products that many of the biggest brands in the world, of which you'd know the names of, have either licensed or bought, is developed for them. Recently took your business into America, is that right?
Yeah, about 3.5 years ago, yeah.
And what other countries are you in?
We're in about 60 countries around the world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we're pretty well covered.
Yeah, and started in Peterborough. All right, so should we get cracking?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the angle I'd like to start with is talking about how important health and fitness you think is to being an entrepreneur.
Right.
And then we'll get into your business and how you've built it. But let's start with, how important do you think health, fitness, diet is to being a disruptive entrepreneur, building a business and making money? Because most people talk about the operational parts of business and maybe not so much the diet, the energy, the health. Yeah. I know you're big into that.
Yeah.
So I know it's an open question, but how important is it?
I guess being an entrepreneur, there's a lot of leadership involved in that. So from when you start the business, having yourself and probably, like you say, your mum and a couple of suppliers, right through to where we are now, where there's over 100 employees. Yeah. And so I think one of the things is that if you're not on your game, so when there's just 2 of you, the revenue that's coming into the business is totally down to you. So, if you don't feel great one day, or you've been up late and you're on an important meeting the next morning, and your body is not helping you, then that's going to affect how successful your business is. Yeah. If you've worked late and you don't feel great, and you sort of you're in a meeting with a supplier or a customer, and you're a little bit your stress is high, and you probably say the wrong things, or you're not composed. Yeah. That's going to affect your business. Yeah. And just that, being an entrepreneur, the sort of motivation and just this sort of ongoing pressure that you've had, if you're not physically able and capable to deal with that, then that's going to determine your success. Yeah. So, you know, when I think about it, everything really starts with your own personal fitness, and mental fitness and physical fitness. And if you're not putting that first before everything, then it you know, it's going to affect your success on some level.
Okay.
So yeah.
So digging into that a bit, because when I started as an entrepreneur, and I used to hear people say that, I just used to discount it. Because I just used to think, well, I want to know how to make money and build a business. Marketing, sales, you know, finance, operations. Don't tell me to eat better and go to the gym. I can kind of work that out myself. And 10 years into the journey now, I think I've almost flipped 180, where I think like, if you've got a meeting with a potential financier for your business, you know, and they could put $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $10 million into your business, or a supplier that could put double your turnover, and you're hungover, you know, you're slow to think, you could totally bomb that meeting. And when you put it like that, I think it's really important to talk about. But I think my guess is this: when you start as an entrepreneur, and you know, you think that working really hard is like what you need to be successful. You know, you listen to all this advice, and, you know, work hard than ever. You know, if you're not doing 15 hours a day, you're a wimp. But if you do 15 hours one day, then you can only do 5 good hours the next day, and then 3 good hours the next day. What's your thoughts? Or am I just getting old now and can't, you know, don't have the energy that I did?
We all get old, you know, and since I started the business, you know, I'm
how old
older.
Now?
I'm 46 this year. And so we all get old. You know, it's something that nobody's been able to solve yet. So you're going to have to, you know, if you're in business, you're in it for the long term, you're going to have to get used to that. So that is one, you know, that is one thing. But it's also about, you know, small things kind of building up over a period of time. So, you know, yes, you can push it. You know, you can have the late nights and the early mornings, and you can do it for a few months. But there is a time, and you know, not sure whether it's happened to you, but there's a time where your body said that's enough. You know, I'm not going to take it anymore, and it closes down. And you know,
what you get ill, or you have a massive sort of meltdown, or something.
There's lots of different ways it can happen. But you know, for me, I travel a lot. You know, probably 2 to 3 weeks out of every month, I'm on a different time zone completely. You know, 6 to 8 hours, and the way my body does it is, you know, I can go on for probably a year or something, but I won't get sick, but my body just suddenly closes down, and I have to sleep, and I'm gone for 2 or 3 days, you know, and I'm not hungry, and I kind of have a strange type of, you know, it's not being sick, but it's kind of, I guess it's your body saying, look, you know, you need to stop before something happens. And you know, fortunately I'm fit and healthy, and it's never, you know, got bad. But you know, every couple of years, if I'm pushing myself that much and not managing my diet and my fitness and not doing sensible things, then something will happen. Something has to break. And so, you know, I'm the same as you. You know, when you talk about balance, being an entrepreneur, wanting to, you know, change the world, then, you know, what's balance? And so you do have to.
So sorry to just jump in. So you're still kind of emotionally and intellectually fighting, I want to take over the world and be an entrepreneur and do all that, but I'm a health and fitness guy who knows it, and you've got to slow down.
There's a lot of discipline, and it depends on your character. And you know, you know, I know your character, and you know, we're similar in that respect. So you have got to be sensible, but I think it's about putting it first. And I've almost got a safety net, and my safety net is when I am. You know, there are times where you can't help that you arrive in a country, you've got a presentation, you have a dinner to go with clients or whatever, and then you have to start the next morning, and you could have, you know, like I've got, you know, 5 weeks worth of travel. And so, you know, my safety net is I've got a routine in terms of my nutrition when I'm going away. So, you know, I've got that pretty fixed, and you know, so that's my first check. Make sure I don't break that, and I don't go too crazy with the food. Second thing is my fitness. You know, as soon as I get there, just do some light type of movement, running, some light weights, just to you know, kickstart the body and get that, you know, get that exercise. And you know, every day if I can, to have that, you know, 15 to 20 minutes workout. It doesn't really matter what I do. It's more of a case of I'm doing something, and it kind of brings me back into a certain amount of balance. And then the third thing is the sleep, the rest, and you know, however you do it. And I know people say, well, there's a lot of these big Fortune 500 sort of CEOs, CFOs that manage on 4 to 5 hours sleep, but a lot of the research is that, you know, it's not great for the body. And so making sure that you get that rest, you know, whether it's sleeping or whether it's sort of sleep combined with some form of kind of, you know, checking out and switching off, But if, you know, if you can do that, or if I can do that, then that's my kind of safety net, and I know I can probably push it to those levels that, you know, most people maybe wouldn't normally do.
Yeah. That's also something else. 10 years ago, if someone had said to me, I'd have just been like, whatever, I'm going to do late nights, early mornings, I can do it, I'm superhuman, I'm a young entrepreneur. And I think it depends what someone wants, because if someone wants some short-term success, you know, go and be a maniac for a year.
Yeah.
But if you want decades of success in business, you've got to look after yourself, haven't you?
Yeah.
And, you know, if you do 2 hours or less every day for 3 months, but then you're not ill for a week,
Yeah.
it's probably better to be consistent than it is all over the place.
Yeah.
Because for the first 5 years of business, my rest was when I got ill.
Yeah.
That was my days off. I just beat myself to the point where, like, you know, you pick up something that you wouldn't normally pick up.
Yeah.
Or you get a cold and it just kills you.
Yeah.
Because you've battered yourself. And something you said about there, which, again, you know, you don't really normally use the word routine and entrepreneur in the same space.
Right.
But I think that's really important.
Yeah.
And you clearly do as well.
Yeah.
So I think you talked about, because I picked up a lot of tips off you, so you talked about gym or exercise, diet and sleep.
Yeah.
So no particular order, let's go sleep. So for me, I've done a lot of testing on this, and I've tested sort of having afternoon naps from time to time if I'm really knackered. I drink coffee, so I know that puts things a bit strange.
Yeah.
But for me, 9:30 till 5:30 or 10 till 5:45, optimum.
Yeah.
And for years I used to think I need to be like Margaret Thatcher, who slept like, you know, 13 seconds a day, because I'm wasting time sleeping. But I've kind of reversed on that, and any longer and it's not so good. Have you done some testing on that, you think?
Because
I was sorry to interrupt. I also think everyone's different.
Yeah.
You know, like maybe when you're older and you do no exercise and your metabolism is a lot slower, maybe you can sleep less because you're less active and you're not growing and your muscles aren't growing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, you do a lot of workout. Surely you need sleep to grow your muscles.
Yeah, there's a lot of conflicting information out there, and in health and fitness and nutrition, that you've got to be careful of that, and you've got to be careful of who's behind the information
and what they're selling you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things you've got to be careful of, and the only advice is to sort of, you know, the second point is probably, you know, see how it feels with you personally. Test. And so, you know, I've tried lots of different things, and it's difficult to test when you are all over the place. So, you know, if you're traveling sort of, you know, one way around the world, and then you come back and then you're the other side, it's quite difficult. But with me, I you know, I'll need, if I'm working out, you know, pretty hard, and I like to, you know, I've done it for a long time, and I like to sort of push myself, then I'm going to need around about 8.5 hours sleep per night, you know. And although I read about these people who get away with less, and I've tried less, I've tried 4 and 5 and 6, it just, I can't do it. It just doesn't work with my body. And there is,
but, I mean, they might not be doing as intense weights as you. They might have a different lifestyle. They might be a different age.
Yeah, absolutely. Age has got a lot to do with it, and lifestyle and nutrition. All of that comes into play. But there is a lot of information out there now that, you know, people are starting to show the importance of sleep for brain health, for your body to repair. You know, it's really important, and it's important to get the right type of sleep as well. And so sleep is important. I think you've got to experiment with yourself, but I think if you don't feel great when you're getting up in the morning and you're feeling tired in the afternoon, then, you know, something's not quite right, and you need to sort of, you know, get that balance. Either go to bed earlier or get some rest at another time, or but you know, rest is so important, and particularly as you said earlier about these meetings, it's amazing when, you know, sometimes if you step back and add up all those little things that you probably didn't take any notice of, but, you know, you maybe lost it a little bit in one meeting, and then, you know, you said something to a supplier, and suddenly you kind of, you know, I find if I've been on a long trip, come back, first few days I arrive at Heathrow at 7 in the morning, and I'm in a meeting, you know, I'm straight into my Monday day and my week. You know, sometimes, you know, a few of those meetings, it's like, wow, you know, kind of, what's up with you today? And I've had people come up and say, you know, you're all right, is everything okay? And you don't kind of realise, but you're very short fused. And you know, you can get away with it with certain people. But if you do it over a period of time, then it's going to affect the relationship you have with the people that you work with. you could say the wrong thing to customers. Maybe you're not thinking, and you piss off a customer or something like that. Yeah. And it's going to have a compound effect over sort of 6 to 12 months. So I think it's just important that when you are doing a lot of travel, and someone said this to me, is just find that time where you've got a bit of wind down time, you can sort of rebalance yourself. And as difficult it is for me, because I think, if I do that, then I'm wasting, precious time. And I think it's just about changing your thought about that time, and changing it to, so this is actually going to help my business and help me be successful, rather than thinking that you're actually wasting time by sitting and chilling out or something.
And I think again that's a lot of that is how long term you see yourself in this business, because I've been quite an extreme personality my whole life, of doing things very hard and very fast for fairly short periods of time in everything in my life, and then burning out or getting bored. And if I think back to, I got black belts in martial arts, or I got to good standards in sport in a short period of time. Well, if I'd have still been doing those now, I might have been somewhat dangerous. And the only thing I've properly done for a long time in my whole life is stayed with my current fiance, and we've got a great relationship, and that's a lot less. What should we say? You expend less energy when you're settled with one person, and you're spraying it into your business, and not all over Peterborough town centre or whatever. And obviously being a parent, and then also putting all the energy into the business. And I see now that 8 hours a day in progressive is far better than 15 hours a day for 9 months and then a 2-week illness, or because everything bad happens, doesn't it, when you lose it? Like, you lose it with your kids, not when you're happy and rested and feeling good. When you're hungover or you've had a late night, and it all goes wrong in those moments. And so if you can minimise those moments, which seems to be sleep, eat, train, then you've got that longevity.
There's a thing as it relates to, it's the same kind of mindset, but even with working out, for years, like I say, I started when I was 15, and then I wanted, at that time I was a junior bodybuilder, I wanted to compete, and for me it was about building muscle and getting as big as I could, as quickly as I could. And I sort of kept that up until my sort of 20s really, and as I got more involved in the business, I started to meet other people, and they said, what do you talk about your workout program? And for me it was straight into the weights, almost like get as heavy as I could, as quick as I could, warm-ups, what are they, and then cool downs, just out of the gym, and that was it. And so I'd just pack it with lifting weight, and more recently, certainly within the last 5 years, I started to understand the importance of what you do before, what you do after, and on those in-between movements, because as you get older, your body, stuff changes, and you're not as flexible as what you were before, and you're stiffer in the mornings, and things change. And unless you're, point you made, if you want to be doing this for the long term, and as you get older, you start thinking, well, actually, you want to live as long as possible, then you have to be thinking about other things, and certainly mobility and movement and flexibility is extremely important. Particularly as you get older, it can improve your performance, so it can help you become stronger and fitter. It can help you reduce injuries, and they're things similar to sleep. They're things that most people take their focus off because they feel, well, it's not as important as this. And I at a very young age, I was doing a reverse leg press with a lot of weight, and I dropped it down too quick, hurt my lower back, and that's sort of been with me for years, and it kind of comes on and off. But when I'm particularly tired or worn down, then it locks up. And I used to have to go to the chiropractor, and 3 or 4 sessions, and I was fine again. Now over time and learning more about my body and movement, I've been able to almost totally reduce the need for that to happen. But it's about what I do before I get on the weights, and how I mobilize myself, my hips, how I avoid spending too much time sitting down in a chair, and just little things like that, which mean now I can move better, I can lift weights, and I don't have issues with my back. And the amount of people that have back issues is unbelievable, and most of that is down to what they do outside of the gym, or before or after they work out. So they're all preventable things in most cases.
Sure. So before everyone starts to think we're slightly off on tangent, I purposely wanted to go here because it's not something that's discussed that much in sort of where you learn about business. But I remember reading about Clive Woodward when he came into the England team, you know, basically made England team best in the world and won the World Cup. I remember reading that he was looking at every single area of the game and looking to improve it, you know, 1% or 5%. Because if you think about rugby, you know, scrummaging, you've got all the different positions, you've probably got the diet, the sleep, everything. If you improve everything 1%, you get this big compounded result, tactics, you know, everything. And kind of as businesses as you get to a certain level of success, I think you find you've got to do that. You've got to look to make the incremental improvements because you know you get to a certain level and you're doing all right. So things like I went to St Andrews. Bobby's played in his British Championships and didn't sleep very well in the beds, even though the beds were quite good. So you know, good pillows, good bedding, no light in the bedroom. You know, if it's quite light, kind of, you know, those little things can make a big difference. I remember you saying to me, you always have a Bulgarian bag. I didn't know what it was at the time. I googled it, but you always have a Bulgarian bag in the boot of your car, so that you know if you've got no time, because entrepreneurs have always got a way of finding an excuse that they're too busy, haven't they?
Yeah.
But at least you've got a Bulgarian bag with you. You can lob it around and do 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I put a gym in the basement when you told me about that, and I put a gym in the garden. And so even if I've, you know, because if you've got to get yourself ready and prepared and get your gear together and drive 3 miles to go to your gym and it's raining and you're late, you've got a reason not to do it.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, you know, I don't want to use too many American terms. I learn a lot from the Americans, but you know, you're almost gaming yourself or hacking yourself, where you know you set your environment up so you sleep really well because you've got great bedding and you've got no light in the room. You go to bed at the same time each time, and you don't look at your phone for the last 20 minutes, and you've got workout gear with you, near you. So when time runs out, at least you can do 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Is that something that?
Yeah, they're very good points, and I guess for me it comes down to sort of making it easy to do, and if you the more barriers that are in the way, you know, I used to do this, but before I started traveling, it was like, well, I must have a gym that's got this in there and that in there, and I go to, you know, most places, 9 out of 10 places you travel haven't got a good gym.
Even 5-star hotel, £450 a night I was staying at. Gym had like 2 machines. You got to be ready for that, haven't you?
Yeah. So you got to prepare yourself for those things. And so for a while, I used to then, you know, I'm in the business. I'm going to see people, talk about fitness, and I would say, oh well, you know, there's no gym in a hotel. That's my excuse that while I'm on this trip, I'm not going to work out. And for a period of time, I was thinking, well, this isn't going to work, you know, because I'm now traveling a lot, and I can't put up with this. So the way I started to do it was to think about, you know, what can I do that's going to give me a really good workout, and if I'm not, you know, doing what I would traditionally do for about 4 weeks, I'm still gonna, you know, I'm still gonna feel as I'm doing something. So I kind of came up with a simple routine, and now really, as long as I've got my running shoes with me, I've got like a little app that sort of measures my my energy that I'm putting out, my calories, my heart rate and everything. So I kind of got this app, anyone can get it. And then I've got, and I think, well, if I can get a couple of dumbbells, you know, and most places will have some sort of dumbbells. You know, there are a few that don't, but if I can get those bits, or if I can find,
could you like take your TRX with you, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a portable thing as well. And if I can find a children's sort of playground, where they've got, you know, swings, and I can do.
You're one of those guys we see doing all those crazy things,
Yeah, so I'll do pull-ups, you can do dips, you can do some stuff with dumbbells, you can run for 20 minutes, and you can have a good sort of 45, 60-minute workout, but where you feel you've properly worked out. So I think it's about getting, you know, preparing what you're going to do before you go there. So wherever you arrive, you check out, is there a gym, is there somewhere to go, and you're ready. Anywhere in the world you can do that.
A couple of things I picked up off people, which I thought was quite useful, is as soon as you land somewhere new, just go for a run and do a recce around the place. Because you're going to want to know where the nice restaurants are, shops, but obviously you do your run. That's great. Also, always take the stairs, not the lift. You know, and I've got this weird habit. If you ever see me go upstairs, I always run upstairs. It's kind of weird. But it's just these things compound up, don't they?
And you know, there's a great book. It's a guy called Kelly Starrett, but I think it's to do with sitting, particularly in children. But you know, the damage that is done with sitting. And if you think about it, if you work out the amount of time that you spend sitting in meetings, sitting in the car, trains, planes, there's some sitting that you can't avoid. You know, you can't avoid sitting in your car, but what you need to do is to balance that. So, you know, standing desks.
Do you use the massage seats in your car, or are they just gimmicky?
I have got them, but they don't.
They're gimmicky.
They're not really going to make a big difference.
We on the way back from Scotland, we put those on a few times, thinking, oh yeah, this is good, but all right, it's
not. Yeah, it feels nice, but it doesn't really do anything. But no, really, it's about kind of, you know, standing desks are important. I've got one. You know,
is that where you can sort of raise it up?
But ideally keep it on the standing position.
Yeah.
And just avoid sitting down too long in meetings.
Yeah.
You know, we're obviously a fitness company, and there's some parts of the company that are still used to traditionally sitting down.
Yeah.
But then there's other meetings we have with different people. The product development team, you know, they'll be standing around.
Our design team do that. They stand up for their meetings. It also reduces the amount of time, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the wastage.
Yeah. So definitely sitting has a big impact, not just on, you know, the way you move. You know, if you want to think, you know, come up with ideas, and you're basically cutting off the blood flow to half of your body.
Right. Yeah.
So if you are, like, you know, for them, if you're trying to be creative or you know, get to a solution, then you want to be standing, and then you start seeing people, you know, they're slumping in meetings, and then, you know, energy's gone, and you're almost like better off finishing it there.
Yeah.
And that's when you know, that's when really when the meeting starts sort of going downhill.
Yeah.
So yes, standing is pretty important, I would say.
Okay, cool. So definitely want to come back to diet, specifically talk about brain food and all that, but I want to part that just to mix it up a bit and start talking about your business and how you've developed it and the story around that. So you started in '98, you said.
Yeah.
And why did you start the business, and what was it, and why did you get into it?
Well, as I said, I'd been interested in fitness from a young age. From sort of 15, I was inspired by my cousin. He was lifting weights, and so I guess he was probably one of the people that sort of first got me thinking about it. And then I asked my dad to buy me a set of weights for Christmas. And then I think it was pumping iron.
I was just going to say, have you seen Pumping Iron? That is awesome.
Yeah, I remember sort of, I fell off my roller skates and one summer and couldn't go anywhere. So I happened to have this film Pumping Iron, and I must have watched it 20 or 30 times. You know, I could recite every single word in it, and then I thought, this is what I want to do. Yeah. And then so I sort of started lifting weights in the garage. The one qualification I got from school was in woodwork and metalwork, so I made a bench and some squat stands, and that I guess that was the first piece of fitness equipment I made. Yeah. And then went into, you know, searched for what I wanted to do. Didn't really, you know, everybody says you know, people suddenly get this urge, they know exactly what they want to do. I didn't. I weren't really sure or clear about what it was, but I always, this fitness thing stayed with me. I used to do jobs in the evening that would get me free access to gyms and work as a nightclub bouncer and sort of learn about nutrition and how to work out and how to prepare for competition. So it's something that when I think back, it stayed with me for a long time. And then kind of had this idea one day in the gym, saw these big sort of bumper plates that they do Olympic lifting with. I remember seeing one of those, and it had Poland written on the side. And my father, who started the business with me, he always had this sort of idea about going back to Poland, where his family was from, and setting up a company there. It was at the time where Poland was a closed country, and nobody really did any business there, and he thought there was some good opportunities to be had by going into Poland before anyone else. So he had a lot of family connections, and I said, well, look, why don't you try and find where they make these bumper plates, and I'll, you know, this would be my dream job. I'll just go around gyms all day and try and sell them. Yeah. So he was working for another company, and it took months. He used to be on the phones in the evenings to long lost family, aunts and uncles. Eventually found a company, and I remember there's a house not too far from here where we lived at the time, and I remember this big 40-foot truck was reversing down this little cul-de-sac where we lived to unload this first pallet of weights that we had, and my mum was called me up in the office panicking. Quick, there's a big lorry down there. The neighbours are looking out the window, and this guy wanted to offload it. He said, "You know, have you got any forklifts?" And it's like, "No."
Yeah.
So they offloaded them one at a time, and that's kind of where we started. You know, just came up with. There was no real big, fancy business plan.
I've got one question on that, if it's all right,
Yeah.
and that is hobbies and business. So I set up as an artist because art was one of my passions. Probably listening to you, not quite as much as a passion and health and fitness is to you. But what's your take on that, or whether someone should or shouldn't turn a hobby into a business?
Well, I would say, do you think what was the reason that you couldn't have turned that into business? You know, could potentially.
Well, the reason it didn't scale was because I didn't understand sales and marketing. I understood how to paint pictures.
Yeah.
And I was good at painting and drawing, and I had the proof, but I was scared to go out and sell them.
Right.
And I didn't embrace marketing.
Right.
And I used to think, well, if I didn't sell any paintings, I must need to do more paintings.
Right.
So I'd have a different take on that now.
Yeah.
And I suppose property saved me, and so that's why that didn't succeed.
So potentially, if you sold the business.
Well, if I did it now, someone else would do the paintings. I'd build the brand. Someone else would sell them. Someone else would market them, and I'd sit on the beach and pull the strings.
Yeah.
So
potentially, you could still turn your passion into a business, knowing now, I guess, about the sales and marketing side.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think some people, though, they're just a bit delusional that, because they love it so much, can you take decorating macaroons? Can you take that and turn it into a multi-million-pound global business?
Well, I think somebody has. There's a little place my daughter loves. It's in it's a macaroon shop. I can't think the guy's name now.
Right. Someone actually asked me that question on the podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he has done it. He's a French guy, and he's got a concession they're in Harrods and Selfridges.
Right.
I'll find the name. But anyway, they are amazing macaroons.
Right.
And this guy's built a huge business out of I guess decorating macaroons. So yeah, you probably can.
There you go. Yeah. So do you think is the key then that you've got enough of a passion that you'll endure the challenges along the way? I
think the problem, and we've seen it as well. We've sort of had different business ventures where we've taken people that have got a passion for something and then tried to shoehorn them into being business people.
Yeah.
And their passion overrides their sort of business, commercial, sales and marketing, and so that's difficult. So it's like if you are an artist, or if you're a passionate person about let's say making, I don't know, whatever, making plastic bottles that look beautiful, then you can be so into that you don't have
any commercial awareness.
Yeah. And I think that's the problem. So providing I think you can get the balance between your passion, or you can build a team of people. I was fortunate. My father was very good at the business, the operational, the financial side. So he and I was very much sales, marketing, product development. Knew about the industry, what it wanted, and so as a team, we kind of complemented each other's strengths.
Yeah.
If you listen to what Richard Branson says, his skill set's fairly narrow, but he's got some great people around him who do. And I think if you hear any entrepreneurs, that's the case. So I think providing that you can get that team and manage that team, keep that team together, then you can make any passion a success.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because I think that too. I also think there's got to be a market. And I think you've got to embrace some new skills you haven't yet got.
Yeah.
Because if you're a great artist but no one sees your art, you're not a great artist. You're only a posthumously dead poor artist. And there's plenty of poor artists. But one good agent, but you've still got to sell that agent on your art.
Yeah.
Like a band. Probably loads of. I've got a friend in Peterborough who's a brilliant musician, great band. Listen to him singing, you think that could be in the charts, but not the poppy stuff. But he's just been kind of journeyman in for 15 years because maybe not quite right image, maybe not quite the right label, or
I think there's lots of cases. I meet lots of talented people, trainers around the world. We meet so many people with great products. We're a fitness company. We develop products and sell them to trainers and health clubs around the world. And out of every 20 or 30 ideas, 1 or 2 of them will fly, and there's different reasons why some of them don't work. You know, some of it can be the execution, so it can be a great product, but the way it's executed, either by the company that brings it to us or we partner with, or you know, by us ourselves, you know, that plays a big part. You could have a semi-average product, but it can be executed fantastic, and it can do incredibly well. You've also got, I guess, I've lost my track of thought now.
Well, I could probably help you out here, because there's a question I wanted to ask, which is, what do you think makes the difference between, you know, you see a load of good entrepreneurs or people in the fitness industry, and most of them don't succeed, and then 1 or 2 does. Is there anything you could bottle that makes a difference between the also-rans? Because there must be loads of stories in every industry of people who were nearly there.
Yeah. So I think, picking up on the bit that you said earlier, you know, about learning skills. You know, when I started the business, the first thing I did was when I was pitching to a company to supply us products, there was a guy, he's actually in Peterborough, and he did me this sort of 2-day negotiation course in my back garden, so you know, I wanted to learn how to negotiate, and I did sales courses and marketing courses, and you know, pretty much for 10 years, every other month I'd be learning something to improve my skill set, because I didn't have any of that knowledge. So those were important things. You've got to develop yourself, and you've got to learn about what's going in the market, and then understand how you can apply that specific information to what you've got. There is.
Can I just pause it really quickly? Just keep the next bit. Everybody that I've interviewed on this podcast has said personal development, continual learning, investing in yourself, doing courses, trainings, home study, having mentors, whatever. Everyone has said that. I mean, Joe Valenti, I interviewed him, who won The Apprentice, and he's got Lord Sugar as a mentor, and he read his book and learned his book off by heart, you know, and that he thought that really helped him. And I just wanted to pick up on that, you know, there's a lot of people that don't believe in that, and you just go out and you get the experience, but you can make big mistakes going out and just getting the experience.
And I agree that, you know, some people think that you don't need mentors, but if you know, the way I use it in some cases is more just motivation. You know, I take some of it, I leave some of it behind, but sometimes, you know, you can go to a workshop, you can meet other people, and it just kind of gives you that that boost, because entrepreneur, you know, I know I'm going a little bit off track, but being an entrepreneur, it's quite a lonely
It certainly business. Is when you start, you don't have a team, and you're in your bedroom, isn't it?
And even as you grow, because you don't want to share your problems with the people that you know.
But you have to deal with all of this. And all the responsibilities on you. And when the cash flow's low and they're pissing around, and you know there's not much money left in the bank, and all that stuff. And they never thank you, but you have to keep thanking them, otherwise they're not very happy. And
so it can be quite lonely, and when you know, whether you want to grow or whether you're pulling yourself up from a downturn, whatever that is, it's quite a solitary experience. So being able to go out and, you know, whether you go on a workshop course, you have a mentor, whatever, having that,
or just like when we catch up for go to Carluccio's, and you get to talk about 2 people who in a different world can talk the same language, they'll find that inspiring.
So I think having that just kind of gives you those mini boosts. But I think that in relation to the question that you asked, is you've got to take the right information for you. So I think it's important when you say, you know, what's the difference between the ones that make it and don't make it. I think there's a lot of people think, right, I'm going to come up with a great product, I'm going to stick a good name or brand on it, and then that's going to sell. And there are examples, which is unfortunate, but there are examples of those cases where that does happen. But when you sort of look into it, and most people, you know, they'll look at the surface and say, well, you know, this product came from nowhere, and all of a sudden they're selling millions of units and they're a huge brand. But if you are able to look underneath the bonnet, which is quite difficult, because a lot of people won't actually tell you of a lot of the cases.
Or you read in magazines and see on media, they want the overnight success story, don't they? They don't want the 10 years overnight success story.
No. So, and you know, they won't find out about, you know, how they were funded, and you know, the fact that the people who funded the business, you know, took it out and wanted to sell it. So all those kind of stories that go on, you know, they don't see that. And so what they think is they'll come up with a product and they'll think, oh, we're going to sell all of these units. But that's, you know, that's not the reality. I think what you need, in whether it's in business or whether you launch a product, is you need to take a long-term approach to it. You need to be focused on it. So whether that's with the bit that you were talking about, you know, the learning side, you've got to be focused on, you know, why am I doing this? So, you know, have a plan. I'm going to go and learn this because I want to find out about how to help this part of my business. And then, you know, you come back and you've got a list of things that you're going to work on, because you go to any workshop and you come back with a huge amount of information, and most people fail because they're not applying any of it. But if you come back, as you know, and say, right, there's these 4 things that I really needed, that's why I went there, and I'm going to continue to work on these until I get it right. The same as if you want to get, you know, if you want to get yourself fit, you focus on these basics, and you don't kind of give up until you're there. You just keep going. And I think that's probably why people fail in business. They try and do 2 things, and then they realise it's too hard, and then they're on to the next thing. And as you spoke about, you know, your taekwondo, was it? Your martial arts,
kickboxing, kung fu, all that.
So as you said, if you had have stuck at that, you know, you'd have probably been world class. I would assume by now. But you know, we've all made those mistakes, and in our business, we've done the same. As we've tried everything from, you know, nutrition, this product, that product. We've had it all because.
Well, in your industry as well, there's this brand new super amazing fitness product thingy, isn't there? Comes out all the time.
Absolutely,
it's going to save everyone's life, and they can sit there and it'll make them thin and sexy and.
And as an innovative company, which we are, you know, we want to be on the cutting edge. There's a temptation to take everything. You know, so, we need that, and sometimes you just got to step back and say, well, look, you know, which ones really fit into what we've got. You know, which ones can we really do a good job? Which ones can we sort of be almost like the best in the world at? And you know, which ones are we going to get everybody behind, not just to launch it, but to continue with that product until it's a success. And the ones we have done that with, you know, the one are always generally successful. So I think whether it's your body and you want to get in shape, or whether it's your business, they're the same things. You know, keep it simple, focus until you've mastered it, and just persevere until you're there. You know, don't give up, kind of thing.
And you know, I've got something to add to that, which I kind of recently learned, because my last book, Life Leverage, is a published book. Second biggest publisher in the world, and I've never been published before, and I've written 8 books before it which weren't published. And when you write, you kind of think the work's done when the book is out, and then, you know, and then maybe you do a launch, and then, you know, and then obviously you hope it goes viral and gets massive or whatever. But one thing that Life Leverage really taught me is the first thing the publisher I work with, the person I work with in Hachette, he said that often we do 2 or 3 year cycles of books, i.e. they write a book every 2 or 3 years, and I was planning on writing 1 to 2 books a year. You know, and that's because you've got to keep pushing the hell out of it. You know, like a band does an album, but then they tour and tour and tour and tour and tour and tour and tour. And so it pissed a couple of people off, but with Life Leverage, I basically just keep pushing it. And we launched it, and then we relaunched it, and we relaunched it again with the publishers. And it's like every push you get a new wave, and then I got on the Steve Wright radio show, which is big in the UK. That's why you do 2 or 3 year cycles of books. You keep pushing it, keep pushing it. The work isn't done when you've finished the product that's in a nice box. And I think naively, I thought with book writing, write a great book, get a publisher, the magic happens or it doesn't. But you got to push it. You got to get on the road and do the touring. You know, if you're a band.
And I think that's an interesting point. And sometimes it can come down to, I guess.
Oh, by the way, if you haven't bought Life Leverage yet, sorry.
I think some of that can come down to a couple of things. You know, one could be not really understanding the potential of something. You know, one of the guys, Nick, who works for works in our product design and development team, is always like, well, why don't we just do one product and sell the hell out of it? You know, and sell a lot. And there's lots of examples. If you look at companies like Apple, you know, if you look at their product ranges, they had a few products, and you know, the story about Steve Jobs when he came in was just, you know, slashed them right back. And I think it is tempting to think, well, look, if we want to grow the business, we've got to keep coming out with new things all the time. But you know, potentially it's very easy to deal with a global market now, and I think sometimes we think still fairly locally in terms of what the potential is, and you know, in order to touch people in, you know, around the world. Yes, you can have a few, you know, probably in this podcast you've probably got listeners around the world. You know, yes, we've got customers in as I said, you know, probably even 80 countries around the world with our products. But how deep, how much penetration have we got? And you know, probably if we focused on going deeper in some of those key markets, then you know the rewards would be incredible, because the work that you have to put into is already been done, hasn't it? You know, you've not got to create. So if you have 10 products, so then if you do another 10 products, you've got to do that same thing again for 10 and 10. Whereas if you know, the more you do something, the better you get, and the more things you learn about how to do it, and so you know, that's one of the key things that we've learned in our business now, is to kind of just get a lot better, you know, packaging.
So is that your way of saying you're balancing innovation with existing proven products?
And you can innovate.
Because you're, sorry, just quickly, you're not going to turn your back on dumbbells and bars and benches that have been selling awesomely for 30 years just because the new kettlebell or bags come out.
No.
But if you just stick to those and the new kettlebells or bags come out. Because I mean, I've got loads of examples of this in my business I might talk about in a minute, but what's your thought of balancing innovation, disruption, the new stuff, you know, with the stuff you're already doing that's working? And
I think they call them cash cows. You know, there's there's lots of examples of those items which they're not interesting, they're not sexy, they're probably not even, you know, huge margin products, but they'll sell, you know, year in. It's like in the sports industry, you know, your sort of vest tops and your shorts, you know, there's nothing really innovative about those, and you just need to bring them out every year and, you know, have a little bit of a tweak on it. So those are really important, and it's important not to take your eye off them. But I think for us as a company, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is being innovative. So we're not necessarily not a fast follower. We're not a low price, high volume, you know, strip out every margin. We're a company that wants to be innovative, wants to, you know, be on the cutting edge of how to, you know, get the best work out.
Is there a risk you could be too soon, too innovative, or take risks and they flop because the market doesn't know them yet or understand them?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we've worked with a lot of big brands, big, you know, huge sports brands that have come out with these very innovative products probably about 10 years ago. And we're now, you know, we're working now with our own brand, and we're still using these ideas today, and people have never even seen or heard about them. So there is a danger of being too soon, unless you've got the money to educate a global market.
Nike have just pulled out of golf clubs and balls.
Wow.
And therefore not sponsoring Rory McIlroy anymore. They obviously know that there's no margin in that for them, and they're not, you know, they'll make billions in their apparel. They're not dropping the clothes. That must be hard. Drop products that you've put a lot of time and energy into.
And they're quite good at it, I think, with their wristband product as well, which they, you know, made a huge push on. Fuel Band, Nike Fuel Band, sort of came out of that wearable market, which is, you know, it's a big category, but for whatever reason they decided to pull out. And I think sometimes you've got to have the discipline to do it, because you know, with every product you've got, it costs money to support it. You know, it costs money for us in our type of business to keep it in the warehouse or warehouses, and it's something that I guess, you know, we've still not mastered, but it's an ongoing thing to say, look, you know, let's keep trimming back and let's do better at fewer things. And then from a competitive perspective, it also makes it very difficult for anybody to compete with you, because you're so good in one area that, you know, in order for someone to even try and compete, it's, you know, it's going to take them a couple of years to get that type of knowledge and experience. And I guess it's all about strategy. There are different strategies to business. You know, some people could say, look, a lot of our competitors are in this. Well, I'm just going to see what they're doing, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to try and do it cheaper, and you know, that's a strategy as well, really.
Not for me, but and obviously not for you. So So parallel in our property world, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this. So I have a company called Progressive Property, and for 10 years, a standard 4-day buy-to-let or learn how to invest in property course we've been running, and we'll run 10 of them a year, something like that. And then we have a mentoring program, you know, a year-long mentoring program we've been running now for about 8 years. We've actually had just over now 1,000 people on that program, and it's anywhere from 15 to 50,000. People can get discounts, but that's kind of, you know, roughly where it's at. And they just keep going every year, no matter what's happening. But then you have new things that come in, like the current one is what's called serviced accommodation. You know, people turning their house into like where you can rent the rooms off Airbnb. You know, renting their rooms out by the day, and you can get a lot more per room. And then, you know, a few years ago, there's called options. And instead of buy, you get an option to buy, and you do leases rather than purchases. And what we find is there's this bread and butter that if we turn away from, then we're probably being too innovative or kind of changing too much. Yeah. But then being first and early, but maybe not too early on these new innovations, kind of recession-proofs us in a way. Yeah. But often a lot of them, they're good for a year or 2 or 3, and then they're kind of gone or back to normal. Yeah. Is that the way business works in your world? And have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you've got when like us, we've got to a certain size now where you know, we're fairly recognised. I think up in the past we were always, you know, below the radar, and so we could be risky and experiment with things and not have to think too much about how it would impact on the brand. As you get bigger and you're more respected and you're playing a bigger part in people's businesses, then you have to be careful about jumping on every trend, because if you back the wrong horse, it's gonna affect, as you said, your main business. So I think you've got to be very, very careful about that. And we spend a lot of time on you know, that road. It's like, well, you know, is this right? And there's so much new information coming out in fitness, and so many gurus telling you what to do. You've got to be able to sort of cut through it and say, look, you know, is this good for people? Is this the right thing? Do we feel good about it as a company? Has it got longevity? Is it going to make a difference to people in the long term? And then, you know, then there's a certain sort of profile that we go. If it does that, then we'll get on board and we'll do it the first.
Because there is an argument you can be too innovative, isn't there?
We see a lot of people, and you know, they're pumping a huge amount into this idea, and you think, oh,
no proof, no necessarily a market yet.
And you know, they'll get so far, but you know, you see lots of them. You know, they'll be here today and gone tomorrow. And for us, we're a family business, and we're here for the long term. You know, it's something that I enjoy doing. It's a lifestyle business, and you know, we're not just in it to make a quick X amount of money. So I think that's. However, you know, if you do want to experiment, so we do have we have another brand, another sort of company, and that's our kind of experimenter brand. So it's so
the Fat Duck, the famous restaurant, they had like an experiment kitchen.
Right. Okay.
And they hired someone, and they, you know, basically used to go and do all these experiments there. Yeah. That's quite a good idea, isn't it? You silo something small and risky, like little R&D department. Yeah. So we have, so next to our offices, you've been there. So we've got a escape gym. Yes. And that's a kind of lab. So any new ideas, we'll stick them in there. Yeah. And it's great because we can. Anybody who wants to can go and work out in the lunch times, morning or evening. So it's, you know, it's good to get them working out. But also any kind of cookie ideas that people bring to us, we can say, well, let's put it in there and see what it's like, test it out, and then if it's a little bit out there, we'll put it into this other company, and we'll just see how it goes. It's a test bed, and you know, having the ability to sort of get that outlet and get feedback, and you know, sometimes you need these products in the market for a year to see what they're like, how they use them, how they perform. There's lots of considerations. Are they safe? Particularly in fitness, you know, you need to make sure that the product's safe and it's not going to injure someone. So we're able to kind of test things in a controlled way, and then if they do work, we've got the option to sort of bring those over. So I think if you are an innovative company, and certainly a lot of successful companies, you know, it's a good strategy to have to you know, to be able to differentiate yourself. If you do that, you know, you've got to have this way of
I don't know what they call them. There's a name for it in software where you sort of like you test like a
beta.
Yeah, I can't think what their name.
Version 1 or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of have these little sort of development hubs where you just sort of test ideas and.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I talk a lot about that, because I can imagine in your world, because I've seen, you develop tyres, don't you? I remember a few years ago I bought a 100-kilo rear tractor tyre, and I saw you starting to develop them, and you can obviously flip the tyre, but it's got such a massive tread it digs up my garden, which is why I asked you about, can you do a gym in my garden for me? But you can also drag the tyre. Yeah. But because it's so big and heavy when you drag it, it really cuts your hands up. And I noticed you've put like little handles actually on the tyre, and it's soft, so it doesn't damage anything. And you've got different weights of them. Yeah. And people need to play around with them for a while, don't they? Yeah. So and then they probably start moving it in an innovative way. Yeah. Look at how they're doing it, and there's probably loads of ways now to move the tyre. And
that's a good example of with innovation. There's different degrees of innovation, and so with the tyre, it was a very simple case that we were seeing the CrossFit gyms, which were this was becoming really popular in the way people were working out, and the classic picture of they'll have this big rubber truck tyre and they're flipping it. That was it. So we. Speaking to some people, went into the gym and saw them kind of mocking up using one of our products and doing these types of exercises, and we thought, okay, well that could be quite interesting. And so the sort of idea that we came up with is, how can we take something that's done outside by these CrossFitters that will don't mind getting sort of working out sort of work out with a
more raw
brick, or it's very, very raw, and those guys are passionate about fitness and it's a great experience, but how could I take that to someone like my mum or my wife or whatever? But because it's a great movement. It's a squat, it's a deadlift, it's a push, it's a pull. So if you look at what it does to your body, it's a great movement for people to do. And by using the tyre, it takes them away from thinking that they're doing a deadlift on a bar, which will frighten a lot of people off. So it's like, okay, it's a great movement, it's fun. So by adding colours to it, these are red, blue, green. They look kind of like a tyre, but it's as you said, it's soft. So if you drop it on your toes or falls on your leg, you're not going to hurt yourself. You've got handles so you can grip it. And that was really, it's not really a huge amount of innovation in that, because it looks like a tyre. It does, not a huge amount of innovation in the.
But there's not a lot of innovation in a lot of Apple's products. They just borrow stuff that's like the touch screen and all of that.
Yeah. So it was, but it was, and that's the key thing about when you innovate, because if it's too far out there, then to sell it or for people to understand the concept, you've got to spend a huge amount of money educating the market on why they need it. That the product dies straight away. We've seen some brilliant products, and when you sit down with the inventor, that's a top scientist, you
Einstein,
think, man, how could I live without this product? But how am I going to get you to communicate to millions of people out there without you being in the room? And it took him, it will take him half an hour to explain that concept. Whereas with the tyre, I could put it in the room here, and we could bring everybody in, and they're going to pretty much understand what it is and what you do with it. There's the education behind that is fairly simple. So I guess the trick is, not being so innovative that, unless you can afford to, that the education on that innovation is too big, but just enough where it's ahead of everything else that's on there. And that's the magic. If you can kind of get products that do that, which sell themselves, then you're going to make a lot of money. I mean,
by the way, this is question 1 so far we've done. I'll give you a little sort of 10 seconds to rest your brain.
Okay.
Because I'll make some of these questions quite quick fire, because you've got a $40 million business to run. Hybridising, I think, something that can be innovative, where you don't, like if you look at music genres, often you get a new genre, but it's actually a bit of a mishmash, like hip hop. It's a bit of old Motown or whatever. Or early sort of metal is just kind of detuned rock. And so that's kind of maybe a safer way to innovate, is to sort of hybridise and take things from different industries, even merge them together.
Yeah, I one of the things that I guess I have sort of fairly naturally is I love I love sort of looking at shops and businesses and how things are made, manufacturing, and so I'm fairly fortunate that I can sort of, things just start fitting into place. So I'll look at this microphone, for example, and I like nicely designed bits of cars and what have you, and I'll look at it and I'll look at the screw and everything, and then probably in 6 months' time we're developing a product, for example, and then you'll say, oh, I saw that mechanism somewhere, and it's oh right, it's in here. Yeah. And so by looking, I think it's important to get out and not just stick in your own industry. Get it out there and look at different things. Go out into look at what great successes in retail and what different businesses are doing there. Obviously, depending on what type of industry that you're in. Yeah. But if it's in manufacturing, if you're making a physical product, is get out and see as many different things. Look at what the footwear company are doing to technology in shoes and stitching and labeling and all that kind of stuff. And then when you're developing your thing, you'll be able to pull on all these different ideas from several different industries, and then ideally you want to try and find someone to make it. So,
and just on that, I think people put a lot of pressure on themselves that they're not creative, or they can't come up with ideas. But whilst I don't subscribe to the fact that there are no new ideas, because I do think there are all the time, but most new ideas are just, I looked at some art, I read some poetry, I listened to some music, I saw something, and then I implemented it into something that I put them together in my mind unconsciously. Yeah. To me, that's creativity. Yeah. It's not. You don't have to be brand new and no one's ever done it and no one's ever seen it. Yeah. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think you just got to get, and I'm talking about, again, we're in a manufacturing business predominantly, so it's a little bit different than I guess where you are, but I think the same principles applies. You've got to, in terms of books or video content or videos, is going out there and looking at some really out there businesses that got nothing to do with what you're doing, and seeing some of the things that they do. Because if you look at the best in the field in whatever industry that they're in, they're doing some unique things that make them the best in their field. I love looking at the although I don't do any DIY or home, I don't do any repairs in the home, I'm useless. But I love the going into the stores and looking at the drills and the sort of home equipment, because from a design perspective, they do some amazing things with moldings and how they shape things and design stuff. So I think doing that helps, and also about I'm huge into design and how things look, and I think it's whatever your product, whether you're selling a book or you've got your website or whatever area that you're involved in, is I would always I think is invest in the best kind of design people that you can get your hands on, whether it's creating video, doing podcasts, is get the quality right. As much as you can afford. Certainly you don't want to not do it because you can't afford to do. Don't use that as a barrier to say, well, I'm not going to do a podcast because I can't afford the stuff you've got here. Yeah. But certainly always push to get the best that you can afford at that time.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I've always been really inspired by design, and thinking about now you've just said it, the more amazing design that's around you, it really helps your creativity, I think. So I love Bang & Olufsen. Not necessarily the best sound in the world for the price, but the ergonomics and the way something looks and their new speakers, and you look at them and you're just inspired. So you've got Panerai, they've got a very unique design. I love Patek Philippe, I love IWC or Audemars Piguet, and you look at and you see the design and you realise how much passion and energy and enthusiasm and history of hundreds of years has gone in. You look at a Ferrari or whatever, and you just feel inspired, because you probably can't consciously see it, but you know that some of the best designers in the world have been involved in it. And then if you're surrounded by that, go and see beautiful buildings, you see amazing art, your brain picks up on it. Yeah. And then probably just comes through you. Maybe I'm getting a bit hippie now. I'm not sure, but all right, cool. So we'll do some quick fire ones, if that's all right. We've got so we'll try and keep these short and sharp. Okay. But I'd go. I'm enjoying this. I've gone forever, but Harry's like, how long have we been? An hour? Hour and 10 minutes. This is going to officially be the longest one. Right, so pick one or two things that people in your industry think are really good, but you think is really bad, i.e. the advice they're giving or the products they're creating. A couple of things that you see that people are doing really bad, but they think is really good.
I think for the we're talking the mass sort of public out there. I think there's in what we do there is an obsession about how you have to look, and we're the same. We have great looking people in our catalogues and that, but I think what the fitness is so important. General health and fitness, it's so important for everybody, when kids and whatever age you are, pensioners, being able to understand and get involved in some very simple movement fitness and very simple education on nutrition can make such a difference to so many people, and I think there's a real narrow view on what that is, and it's about having a six-pack and I think that's the perception, and so for us, and we're certainly not the best at doing this, but to sort of be able to open that message up to more people, help them understand some real basics about what they can do. Just as I said, a fact of just standing more, walking more, as we said earlier, cutting out your sugars and your sort of highly processed food. Some real simple little things that people could do could transform their life. And I think there's so much that it's about. People want to quickly lose weight. They think if they lose weight, that that's where they need to be. But it's not really what it's all about.
No. Okay. So the image and the perception, then you think.
Yeah, and it's getting it's being able to make it more of a lifestyle. And I know this is a sort of an overused phrase, but a healthier lifestyle, and is probably what it's all about, and helping people to understand where they can go to get that good information. Certainly some of the rubbish you read in the newspapers that has been sponsored by XYZ company, and suddenly everybody overreacts and takes the information they want and suddenly says, oh, well, that's not good for you, and now we don't need to work out, and now we shouldn't be taking vitamins and all this kind of stuff. That can be a problem as well.
Quite famous guy I know you've been into, that I've been into, Tony Robbins.
Right.
And for quite a long time in his seminars, it's like, don't eat anything with a face.
Right.
So no meat, no fish, no eggs, nothing that came from something with a face, which is basically vegan. And just recently he had like near-death mercury levels in his body, and had to get rid of it. And now it's funny the way he says it, because he says now I'm taking land proteins.
Right.
He's eating meat.
Right.
And I really respect the guy. I'm not knocking him, but it makes me think and you must see this in the fitness industry a lot. Anything that's too extreme surely has got to be bad.
Yeah. So
with diet, what's wrong with having a bit of meat, a bit of fish, a bit of vegetables, a bit of vitamins, a bit of minerals, even a little treat of a bit of sugar in there every now and again if it's natural. And surely if you wipe out half of the 4 main food categories, you might get a short-term result, like Atkins, short-term result, but surely that's not. Surely sustainability is in balance. Yeah. Am I being a bit old-fashioned here, or?
No, I think you're right. There's there's a lot of people
toxins in vegetables. You go organic and vegan. Yeah. Plants don't want to be eaten. That's not their purpose. So there's all these toxins in them. Yeah. And you get too much of anything in your body, and it's a poison.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the problem. Same with working out, you have the same things. With nutrition, you have the same things. And I think you just got to be fairly. And I know most people don't like, the balance. But I think look at a lot of diets. There's a lot of successful diets that people have been eating for years. I had this conversation with someone the other day, and I think what's happened is there's a lot of manufactured foods that we eat because they're easy and it's convenient. And there's a big problem with that. Cows, so beef, lamb, manufactured. If you look at the stuff that's going into some of these animals, they're filling them with stuff. Not all cases you can get good beef, but you know, they're filling it with rubbish. The same for milk and eggs. So I think if you think about how people probably ate, you know, 50 or 60 years ago, you know, you'd have fruits and vegetables that were in season based on where you were living, and there's reasons for that. You know, your meat and your fish would come from, you know, be pretty decent. You know, it's not pumped with steroids, all that kind of stuff, because all that stuff's going into your body, and it's all affecting you. So I think you just got to. There's a lot of common sense with food, pretty balanced. Avoid a lot of the highly processed manufactured foods where they're putting a lot of sugars or sweeteners in there to make them taste nice, because there's probably not a lot else in there.
Last 20 years when they should last 2 days.
And then if you can have some, whether it's meats or fish and some vegetables, and eat for, you know, avoid just eating for pure, you know, pleasure. You know, eat in a lot of cases.
That's the hard part for me.
You know, particularly when you're working anyway, you know, eat. You know, if you've got a lot to do, if you're traveling, if you're in business, then, you know, kind of use it as an energy source. So eat what you need to kind of keep you going, to you know, keep your brain working, keep you feeling good, hydrated, and then at the weekend, you know, I love there's a place in London that does these fantastic little ice creams, and you know, with some fresh cream on top, and you know, on a weekend I'll kind of have that. I love chocolate. I love dark chocolate. But I think if you know, I don't have that every single day, and if I did, you know, you feel different.
Okay, so give us some quick fire brain foods. What are the best foods that an entrepreneur could have that, you know, really get the brain going, good for the brain?
Well, I want to state this now. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm from the fitness side, and so the advice I'll give is down to me, and I think everybody's different, and you know, and you can have so many contradicting things. One person says this is good, and another scientist, you know, is equally.
So tell us what works for you then. So you got your disclaimer out the way. You're not going to get sued.
I think for me, you know, I just, in my diet in the week, I'll start off with my green drink. And there's a lot of them out there. There's some. I've found this particular one which is pretty good for me. It's Athletic Greens. That's Athletic Greens.
Okay.
And that's you know, when I'm traveling and I don't always get to go to
I'm going to get them. So
well, I can actually. There's a. They've offered me if you want 50% for anyone. If anybody wants that, they can try it for 50% off. So if you're interested, I can.
Well, I'll post that. I'll post that.
Okay.
Make that live.
And the thing is with that is and again, it works well for me personally. I've tried greens for many years, and there's lots of different ones out on the market. But this one works great when I'm traveling. You know, you're on the plane and you kind of get the funny stomach effect. And in certain countries I go to, you know, you're going out to Asia and you don't have the same foods as you have here. So there's a certain period of time where your body's adjusting to food, and if you're not feeling great in your stomach, everything's gone. You know, you can't have a meeting, you can't do anything. So for me, wherever I go, I need to be, because I'm only there for probably 3 or 4 days, I can't afford to be sick or feeling not great. So starting off with the greens, it kind of sorts out my stomach. It's got a probiotic in there. So I'll have wake up in the morning, have a sort of probably half a litre to a litre of water. I'll do my greens, and that tends to sort out anything that's been not great in my stomach. And then I'll go, if I can, I'll either go into, you know, like a Whole Foods or something if I'm traveling, if I can get there, or if not, I'll do myself a smoothie. And I tend to prefer to have things like nuts, coconut oil, spinach. I keep to berries, and then I'll put some protein in that as well. And then that's kind of how I
have these. Sorry, just to jump in. I have these Jason Vale juice bars. You know anything about them?
No, I don't. No, I've not heard them.
So base of dates, crushed almonds, power greens. If anyone wants to try them. I'm not plugging them. I don't get a commission, but that seems to be good. Nuts, dates, greens. Find that quite convenient.
So So I have the shake, and that tends to keep me going till about lunchtime. And I know there's, again...
And are there any like supplements, you know, like oils or any supplements you put in which
I do the coconut oil,
Yeah.
and that's pretty much that's all I take.
Yeah.
So I don't take too many supplements. I'll take some good quality protein.
Yeah.
And I've tested different ones, but I take a decent quality protein, and that, yeah, as I said, that'll take me till lunchtime. At lunch, I have sort of salad, fish generally.
Yeah.
I don't eat meat personally, but it's not to say you can put some meat in there. But I have so salad, and that tends to help me. And I'll put I'll put a bit of cheese, maybe some egg, and that will tend to take me until right through the afternoon. So usually if I had quite a bit of carbs for lunch, so if I had pastas and that sort of thing, then I'd kind of get to mid-afternoon and then I'd be craving something else. So I kind of have a bit of a dip. So since I've changed my lunch, then I'm fine until I get to sort of about 7, where I'll have my dinner.
Yeah.
And I'll have generally, again, fish, vegetables, maybe some rice, maybe some sort of baked potato, that kind of thing, and that's pretty much it.
Okay. What's your thoughts on coffee? Because I am addicted to coffee. I have 2 a day at exactly the same time, and I have this fear that there's life one day without it, and I just don't know how I'd function. But
well, there's some interesting stuff at the moment about coffee, and I'm because at the moment I stick to weekends. So there's a couple of little. There's a place called Soho Grind that we go to, and it does some really nice sort of, they roast their own coffee, and it's a bit different to your Starbucks stuff. It's got quite a distinctive flavour, and there's quite a few of these sort of boutique coffee places opening around everywhere now. But so I've been reading a lot about it, and certainly there's some research about it being performance enhancing. So rather than taking these pre-workout stuffs that have got all kinds of chemicals in, then caffeine, a good coffee is great to take before workout. There's quite a bit of stuff around diet and losing weight with coffee. There's quite a few people at the moment kind of talking about. It's a hunger suppressant,
isn't it?
Yeah,
definitely. I don't want to eat anything for 3 hours when I've had a coffee.
Yeah, so there's some information on that. I read something. Get the guy's name, Strength Sensei. He's a strength and conditioning coach, and I saw his blog the other day, and he was, there is a bit of concern about how it fires off your adrenal glands and what impact that can have, and some of it is dependent on whether you have it before. Certainly don't have it after a workout, but before, that it's, I don't think that's been fully worked out, but according to this report, it's fairly.
They drink a lot in Italy. They have a lot of oil, and they seem to live a long time.
Yeah,
that's what I'm telling myself.
So I think I'm still learning about it. I think it's certainly there's a huge amount of benefits in coffee. As to when is the best time to drink it, I still personally avoid drinking it too early on in the day. Although people will disagree with me, but if I'm going to do it, I prefer to sort of do it more sort of early afternoon, mainly because I don't want to get a spike of a sort of energy spike too early on in the day and not be using my own natural kind of energies and that sort of stuff. So for me, I prefer to not use it as not get that stimulant effect, and then you kind of get a bit of a drop down, and then you sort of that's the only sort of thing I'm sort of working out myself. But yeah, certainly there's a lot of benefits, and I think you've got to have the right coffee, and you probably don't want to put huge amounts of milk and sugar and everything else like that in it. Probably as pure as you can get.
All right, cool. If you could be skint but fit, or rich but semi-unhealthy, what would you choose?
Skint but fit.
Okay, that was just a random one I slipped in there. Totally irrelevant. Best books or documentaries you've ever watched on health, fitness and business? Just give us a quick fire. You said Pumping Iron. Any others?
On fitness, I think...
or business.
Yeah. I think there's a YouTube channel I'm looking at the moment. It's called Dr. Rhonda Byrne.
Yes, from The Secret, who did The Secret.
No, it's not her. Let me have a look. I've got it on my phone. Let's just take a look. It's Rhonda Patrick.
Okay.
Yeah, and she's a doctor, and there's some interesting stuff about nutrition on there. and seems to be quite a credible source. So I'd recommend taking a look at that. There's a guy who does something called Mobility WOD, Kelly Starrett. He does some really great stuff around movement.
And then what about business? What business people do you follow?
Rob Moore, disruptive entrepreneur.
I haven't got my money with me. You listen to the podcast, do you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. In business, as I've said in the past, I've done the Tony Robbins Business Mastery. I think that's a good program. But recently, I just I'll pick up
because we're often exchanging audio books or suggestions. Any good ones you've listened to recently?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think what I've listened to recently. There's nothing that stands out. It's just I've got a bit of a brain blog, but I'll give you the ones that I'll give you the ones that I've
or have a look on your phone.
Yeah, I'll just see which ones I've got at the moment. Yeah, there is a guy, again, this is not a book or anything, but he's got a nice sort of video podcast on fitness. He's called Steve Maxwell. Okay. And he talks about fitness for people as they're getting older. Yeah. One of the things is I'm now 46 and what's going on there? Which is similar to CLA. That's one I was listening to. He talks about as you get older, your sort of natural testosterone levels decrease. Right. So as a guy, you're unless you're working out building muscle, then you're fighting what happens with age. Yeah. So in your 20s you would have naturally had more muscle, and in your 40s and 50s then that's decreasing. So he's got an interesting approach, and again very balanced. He's not in one direction or another, but that's certainly worth checking out. Okay. And then the other one that I've listened to, which is really good, Peter Diamandis, which you turned me on to, I think is very good.
Get Abundance. Yeah, that's awesome. Love that.
And then there's one which is Alistair Campbell, how winners and how they succeed. I thought that was great because he interviewed, it was a cross section of different people from different businesses, and I thought that was a very interesting one as well.
It was worth pushing for because they're both really good. The Get Abundance is great if you want to think bigger. Yeah. Because what Peter Diamandis is doing is on a kind of a almost galactic level, and winners obviously. Alistair Campbell's well known, and you get into the psychology of successful people. You can, they say, own the traits of the greats, and you can just pick up little bits. Great. Okay, so biggest business mistake you made.
Biggest business mistake. I wouldn't say that we've done, and not to say we haven't made mistakes, because we have, but I think when you're pushing your business into new territories, then you're always kind of readjusting the course, and so I would say all of what people could class as mistakes that I've done up until now are probably as many different things as what we'll continue to do going forward, because we're always going into new areas. We have this discussion in our product team is when you launch a product, you want it to be perfect and no issues, but whether you're Mercedes-Benz or Apple, you put out a new product, the new iPhone will come out, and you can guarantee there's going to be stuff that isn't right. And so I think if you are that type of person, then you've just got to kind of quickly learn what has gone wrong. You've got to be able to put it right really quickly. You've got to make sure your customers are sort of, have that confidence that you are going to put it right. Yeah, we've messed up, but we're in control of it. We'll sort you out. And that's what Apple do. That's what Mercedes do. And
there must be something you've done, though. If you're looking back, you think, ugh. Ever lost it with any team members? Ever done anything really bad?
That happens quite frequently. Yeah. No, I think it's probably just is just that thing I said about focus. Is just probably sometimes forgetting what we're all about, what our core business is, and then going in directions that you think actually probably shouldn't have done that. That's not what we're about. But in a lot of cases, you learn a lot when you do it, and you learn maybe if we didn't do that, we wouldn't have realised that you've got to be kind of more focused, because you'd always use that story to say, well, look, don't be doing that again. But no, we've fortunately, touch wood, we've not made any huge mistakes that have affected
Yeah.
people. We're not done anything silly,
Yeah.
and we're quite careful about that.
All right, great. So I think we've probably got to put this to an end because we've probably both got things to do, but really grateful. And this has been the longest podcast we've done, which I think is great. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you have. I know we'll be getting loads of comments on this because it's very different to what we've done before. But how can people follow you, find you yourself, products? Where are you online? Are you on social? Anything like that? Yeah,
so if you go to escapefitness.com, I'll give you the link. But we create a newsletter. It goes out every 2 weeks, and we sort of interview. We've got some top trainers that are really talking on a sort of fairly high level about fitness and exercise. So you can subscribe to that. That's certainly worth doing. You can go to my Facebook account. There's some pretty interesting stuff there.
And how do you spell your last name? Because
it's I can. Do you want me to sort of give? Do you want to put that in the podcast?
Yeah.
But Januszek. But I can give you the links for that.
And we can get the link for the athletic.
Yeah, I'll give you the details on that one as well. Those would be the. Those would probably be the main places that you could you can find me.
Matt, really grateful.
Yeah,
thank
thanks.
you very much.
Thanks, very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Leave a review, leave a comment. It really would help us a lot to continue to keep these going.